Nintendo 64. Yet another system to add to my collection of nostalgia-bound haven. Love it or not, you gotta admit how impressive its legacy is. It's home to a lot of Golden Age polygonal games, ranging from classic Jurassics to golden garbage. But I'd rather focus on the former right now, so let's get to ranking my favorites the console has to offer. Let's begin top 10 Nintendo 64 games. Well, there you go, a staple for the system itself. Being the literal first video game I've ever played, Mario 64 is the very face of classic. It's the 3D platformer goodness you can expect. Great physics for its time, a lot of acrobatics, fun levels, bopping music, and just an overall grand ooze of charm from a game that's not so heavy on style, but is clearly having a lot of fun with just being a project for 3D Mario. As a kid, I enjoyed the game a hell lot, but there's definitely a lot of emphasis on hell, because this game has managed to find ways to scare the chickadees out of me. It might just be a case of megalophobia, thalassophobia, or both. But that's just part of what makes it so memorable. Even if the controls don't age well and some levels could have been designed better, there's nothing wrong with loving a game that brought a lot of 3D platformers to light. Sunshine, Galaxy, and Odyssey only have their pops to thank for what they are now. Kirby 64 seems to be the signature favorite Kirby for many people. Me? I think it's pretty swell, but I definitely bear stronger favorites. Nonetheless, you can never go wrong with a good pink boy flying around eating innocent pedestrians and using their essence of life to murder more innocent pedestrians. Yep, the concept of mixing abilities has remained unique to this game for a while, and it really shows how fun it is to see what sorts of abilities you can get. A lot of them are pretty fun to use too. You know, assuming it's not the undesirables. It definitely carries a lot of charm, with Kirby having a ton of great expressions in this whenever he interacts with his buddies. Not to mention, it's got a really nice handling of tones whenever the game has to shift from bright and cheery to crying blood. You just gotta love how pleasant this game is. Outclass or not, it's a good game. Just as how Kirby is a good boy. Yeah, desolate those bystanders! That ought to teach them for doing nothing wrong! Back in the days when Pokemon wasn't some kind of digital monarchy, we only got games like these to dabble around with our all-star Pokemon fun. The Pokemon Stadium games did an interesting take on a Pokemon collection party, with the freedom to mingle whichever Pokemon you want under a given move pool and set them out on bouts with tournaments and gym leaders. And if that doesn't fancy you, there's always a bunch of minigames to play, which, not gonna lie, totally steal the show. What sets the sequel apart in being better than the first is pretty obvious. More Pokemon, more reasonable mechanics, minigames that will magnetize you to the screen for 5 days straight, and all the more. It's also, weirdly enough, the game where I first studied my Pokemon logics and essentials. Thanks to this game, I found out what the Dragon type actually does! Yay! With the current technology, anyone can make their own Pokemon team with every Pokemon available as of now, but it doesn't hurt to appreciate the old ones for what they brought to the table. Also, Showdown doesn't have Stadium's minigames. Instantly inferior! Picking a favorite Mario Party from this system is tough. I mean, okay, the first game isn't catching up anytime soon, but I do enjoy 2 and 3 a hell lot, and I still find them both to hold up pretty well today. At the end of it all though, I have to stick with 2. 3's biggest problem is, while it has new modes and doesn't charge you for any minigames, it has a serious obsession with luck-based minigames that sheds a bit of an unpleasant tone to the overall experience. 2 is much cleaner in that regard. It has marvelous boards, and the luck elements are much less generalized across the game. A lot of the minigames are genuinely fun, and it's always a thrill to feel like you're going through different worlds with these different costumes and story settings. The introduction to items make the game feel much less linear, and is even further improved with 3 making an entire empire of sneaky strategies with it. It still does charge minigames, but let's be real here. It's far less demanding than 1 given how much fairer it is with its rewards and goals. Overall, this is by far the most balanced Mario Party of the early 3, and I can't recommend a better game to kill friendships with. I'm honestly upset that people are growing to despise one of the most beautiful games I've ever laid eyes on. Now, yes, it has some bad levels. Yes, switching the Kongs can be tedious. Yes, it has maybe a bit too much stuff to collect. But you know what? At least it's not so mean-spirited that it forces you to collect everything while depriving you of recovery. Donkey Kong 64 is deserving of the criticisms, but not the hate. It's still a game built with a strong level of detail and passion despite how gloated it may get. It still offers a lot to explore, and the mechanics surrounding every Kong you get is always fun to twiddle around with. My favorites include hovering around with Tiny and handstanding with Lanky whenever the moment counts for it. Add in cool bosses, beautiful somber soundtrack, and aesthetics that put most N64 platformers to shame, and it's one fine golden banana we got here. Sure, it gloats and overbear once in a while, but as long as you're open to the choice of exploring and collecting as much as you need, there's still a respectable sense of freedom to enjoy here. Respect the game that gave us the rap of our lives, folks.
He has no style, he has no grace. This car is a coconut dog.
Some might complain about its outdated tendencies, but I can't really be harsh on a game that puts both Mario and Pikachu in the same fighting environment for the first time. The sight of that made 9-year-old me explode! I owe a lot of my gaming life to Super Smash Bros., as I sure many people do. Not only is it an all-star Nintendo crossover that brings our signature Nintendo childhoods together, but for anyone who doesn't recognize these characters, it's their gateway to the wider variety of Nintendo's gallery of guts and glory. I will never have grown much attachment to Legend of Zelda, Metroid, and Star Fox without this game, and my obsession with Kirby will take a long damn time to surface had I never caught a glimpse of his regality here. Sadly, my experience with Ness and Captain Falcon are a bit stiff thanks to them being locked. Yeah, because it's not like their games are suffering enough already. Regardless, having the cast together is still amazing, and what better way to celebrate than to have them all beat the crap out of each other in a fallen behind yet serviceable fighting game. It's still nice to see all these characters use familiar moves we all associate them with, and some who don't normally carry fighting moves got an expansion that gives them their own personality within the series. However well it may hold up now, all of us Nintendo fans can only be grateful to Smash 64 for bringing the community together. Before it became a toxic war ground of demands anyway. One does not simply disrespect Star Fox. You usually don't go very far when you do. I may have only had this as my only Star Fox game, but it's enough to get me invested in the series as a whole. Star Fox 64 is a third-person shoot-em-up where you fly an R-Wing to shoot down a bunch of space monkeys. Carol smiles upon you, McCloud. You got your assortment of power-ups in various different stages to revel in, and having the support of your gorgeous crew is always welcome. Just don't expect them to do anything useful. They're kinda bad at it. Despite the simple concept, the game manages to stay very memorable thanks to its atmospheric soundtrack, fascinating world building, consistent steadiness in gameplay and balance, and the hilarious voice acting. They still sound great nowadays, guys, come on. It's well deserving of a classic status in N64. I think it goes without saying when it has these lines.
Bow before the great Ninja.
I know I said Minish Cap is my favorite Zelda game, but if I have to pick a favorite 3D Zelda, that will have to go to the bane of our dreams, Majora's Mask. I usually don't get too attached to dark, gloomy atmospheres in most Zelda games, but this game is a huge exception, simply because it went all out with it. A giant moon falling into the hub city, crazy hostile civilizations, people slowly dying, malformed, and cursed. Damn, this game is brutal with its tone, and it's amazing. The gameplay is still pretty similar to Ocarina of Time's hack and slash bonanza, but goes out to do a lot of its own thing as well, including having transforming masks as primary forms of artillery, and the leisure to explore the smaller but still elusive land of Termina. It may not have Ocarina of Time's longevity and expensive world design, but for me, this is a prominent case of less is more. And besides, only in Majora's Mask can you personally murder a civilian.
Go commit die.
Oh yeah, heroes break rules, bitch. BanjoKazooie is not my cup of tea. It's a fine looking game with a likable style, but it's unbearably cruel with how much it forces you to collect every object from nooks and crannies across the worlds, and not even offering the decency of keeping your lives and notes intact as you go. You got a lack of recovery and abuse of invincible enemies to thank for that. I heard the Xbox version is better, but that doesn't account for how the original plays on the system. That being said, I love BanjoKazooie. This sequel improves over almost every aspect from the original, and even adds its own flavor of joy to spice things up. It still keeps all the wacky moves from the first game and even adds more to the mix like a variety of eggs to shoot and the ability to aim your shots so you don't need to pray you don't hurt yourself big bombing. Recovery isn't limited and you actually get to keep your collectibles, so already that's a significant upper hand over the first game. The new locations can be hit and miss, like I personally don't resonate with the mine and dinosaur levels all that much, but damn did they try with the others. Instead of a fire level and an ice level, why not have both in one? You got a water level? Let's make a whole civilization out of it. Hell, build a sky paradise with an egg, why not? They really amped up the creativity with these levels and I respect it so much. My favorite part is of course, the bosses. Something the first game doesn't have. The bosses of BanjoKazooie are consistently full of variety in both design and battle style. These fights really hit the mark when it comes to sending the grand feeling of taking down a formidable enemy. Despite not being talked about as much as its glorified predecessor, I find myself coming back to this game way more, and it'll probably remain that way for a while. Feels like just yesterday that I rambled about this game, huh? Paper Mario is my gateway to RPG, and to this day, it had an undying level of charm that keeps me coming back. It's turn-based RPG goodness with an addition of action commands to make the battles much more interactive. Having partners tagging along with their own set of unique moves coupled with a variety of badges to add to Mario's arsenal adds all the depth needed to make this RPG function well in its own manner. I've talked about in detail as to how amazingly it handled world design, level design, and soundtrack, but it bears repeating. This game stands as the best example of taking characters and species from canon Mario and creating whole civilizations surrounding them. The levels are full of interesting corners to explore through, and the entire music gallery is nothing short of hummable. Even if its closest sequels are considered far more epic, they don't hold a candle to how strong a value Paper Mario holds as a phenomenal predecessor, being simple enough to set a standard for the future while still carrying its own inspiring qualities to stand out even to this day. That is Paper Mario, my favorite Nintendo 64 game of all time. I'm Count Shaman, and while we're here, I gotta say that if the rumors of a new Paper Mario game were to come true, I'd be down with it. Sure, the series has not been steady for a while, but from the way I see it, they're really just gonna show us a return of the things we love in the games that got taken away: partners and star points. So in the end, Nintendo just has to show what we want to see. Won't be the first time we'd fall head over heels to some great presentation.